This is Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy. Part 4, Chapter 18. When Vronsky left the Karenin house after this interview, he stopped on the steps to ask himself where he was and what he had to do. Humiliated and perplexed, he felt deprived of all means of washing away his shame, thrown out of the path where till now he had walked proudly and easily. All the rules which had been his guides of his life, and which he believed irreproachable, proved false and untrue. The deceived husband, that melancholy character whom he had considered an accidental obstacle, at times absurd, happily for him had suddenly been raised by her to a height inspiring respect. And instead of appearing ridiculous, he had shown himself good, grand, and generous. Vronsky could not understand it. The roles had been interchanged. He felt Karenin's grandeur and straightforwardness and his own baseness. This deceived husband appeared magnanimous in his grief, while he himself seemed little and miserable. But this feeling of inferiority in comparison to a man whom he had unjustly scorned was only a small part of his grief. What made him profoundly unhappy was the thought of losing Anna forever. His passion, though for a time grown cool, had awakened more violent than ever. During her illness he had learned to know her better, and he believed that he had never really loved her till now. He must lose her just as he had come to know her and love her truly, lose her and be left with the most humiliating recollections. He recalled with horror the ridiculous and odious moment when Alexey Alexandrovitch had uncovered his face while he was hiding it in his hands. Standing motionless on the steps of the Karenin house, he seemed to be entirely unconscious of what he was doing. "Shall I call an izvoshchik?" called the Swiss. "Yes, an izvoshchik." When he reached home, after 3 nights without sleep, Vronsky, without undressing, threw himself down on a divan, crossed his arms above his head. The strangest reminiscences, thoughts, and impressions succeeded each other in his mind with extraordinary rapidity and clearness. Now it was a drink that he wanted to give the invalid, and he dropped the spoon. Now he saw the nurse's white hands, then Alexey Alexandrovitch's singular attitude as he knelt on the floor by the bed. "Sleep and forget," he said to himself, with the calm resolution of a man in good health who knows that he can sleep at will when he feels tired. His ideas became confused. He felt himself falling into the abyss of forgetfulness. Suddenly, just at that moment when he was becoming unconscious, as though the waves of an ocean had closed above his head, a violent electric shock seemed to make his body bound on the springs of the divan, and he found himself on his knees, with his eyes as wide open as if he had never dreamed of sleeping, without any longer feeling in the least weary. "You may drag me in the dust." These words of Alexey Alexandrovitch rang in his ears. He saw him standing before him. He saw, too, Anna's feverish face, and her brilliant eyes, looking tenderly, not at him, but at her husband. He saw his own absurd, ridiculous face, when Alexey Alexandrovitch drew away his hands from his face, and, throwing himself back on the divan, he closing his eyes. "Sleep and forget," he repeated to himself. Then Anna's face, just as it looked on that memorable evening of the races, appeared still more radiant, although her eyes were closed. "It's impossible and will not be. How can she efface that from her memory? I cannot live like this. How can we be reconciled?" He unconsciously pronounced these words aloud, and their mechanical repetition prevented the recollections and forms which besieged his brain from returning for some minutes. But the sweet moments of the past and his recent humiliation soon resumed their sway. "Uncover his face," said Anna's voice. He took away his hands and realized how humiliated and ridiculous he must have appeared. Vronsky remained lying down, hopelessly trying to sleep, and repeating some formula to drive away the new and distressing hallucinations which he thought he could prevent from arising. He listened to his own voice repeating with a strange persistence, "You did not know how to appreciate her. You did not know how to value her. You did not know how to appreciate her. You did not know how to value her." "What's going to happen to me? Am I going mad?" he asked himself. Perhaps so. Why do people go mad? And why do they commit suicide? And while he was answering himself, he opened his eyes, surprised to see beside him a cushion embroidered by his sister-in-law Varya. He tried to fix the thought of Varya in his mind by playing the tassel of the cushion, but any idea foreign to what tormented him was still more intolerable. "No, I must sleep." and placing the cushion under his head, he made an effort to keep his eyes closed. Suddenly, he was again seized with a shock. All is over for me. What else can I do? And his imagination vividly pictured what life without Anna would be. Ambition, Superkovskoy, the world, the court. All that once had some meaning, but had none now. He rose, took off his coat, loosened his necktie that he might breathe more freely, and began to stride up and down the room. "It is this that makes people insane," he repeated, "that causes suicide. To avoid disgrace," he added slowly. He went to the door and closed it. Then, with a look of determination, with his teeth set, he went to the table, took his revolver, examined it, loaded it, and stopped to consider. He stood motionless for 2 minutes, with the revolver in his hand, his head bowed, his mind bent apparently on a single thought. Certainly, he said to himself, and this decision seemed to be the logical result of a sequence of clear and exact ideas, but in reality he was continually turning around the same circle of impressions that he had gone over for the 100th time in the last hour. Certainly, he repeated, his thoughts still bent on these recollections of a lost happiness, of a future becoming impossible, and of a crushing shame. And holding the revolver to the left side of his breast, with an unflinching grip, he pulled the trigger. He didn't hear the slightest sound of a report, but the violent blow that he received in the chest knocked him over. He tried to save himself by catching hold of the table. He dropped his revolver, tottered, and fell on the floor, looking about him with astonishment. He could hardly recognize his room. The twisted legs of the table, the waste-paper basket, the tiger skin of the floor, all seemed strange to him. The quick steps of the servant running to the drawing-room obliged him to get control of himself. He collected his thoughts with an effort and found that he was on the floor, and that blood was on his hands and on the tiger skin. Then he realized what he had done. "What stupidity! I've made a fool of myself," he muttered, feeling round for his pistol. It was quite near him, and he began to reload it, but in doing so he lost his balance and fell again, bathed in his own blood. The valet de chambre, an elegant person with side whiskers who complained freely to his friends about his delicate nerves, was so frightened at the sight of his master that he let him lie and ran for help. In an hour Varya, Vronsky's sister-in-law, arrived, and at the same time the 3 doctors whom she sent for in all directions, and who all came at once. And with the assistance she succeeded in putting the wounded man to bed and established herself as the nurse.